This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Wednesday, July 3rd, 2024. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
President Biden will launch a public events blitz as the White House pushes back against pressure on him to leave the race. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
Hurricane Beryl is headed toward Jamaica and the Cayman Islands with life-threatening winds.
Winds are up to 165 miles per hour.
I'm Jennifer King.
Delayed Donald Trump sentencing date in New York.
For some Californians, scorching heat could get in the way of 4th of July plans.
Don't drive your vehicles into hot grass or brush.
I'm Clayton Neville.
On Wall Street, stocks are coming off another winning day and are heading for an early close today ahead of the 4th. I'm Jessica Ettinger.
Florida prosecutors knew Jeffrey Epstein sexually assaulted teenage girls before they cut a plea deal with him. I'm Ben Thomas.
The presidential campaigns are releasing fundraising numbers for the second quarter. Ed Donahue, Washington.
All ahead on America in the Morning. President Biden will launch a public events blitz. This following a disastrous debate and concerns within his own party as to whether he can defeat questions about his age and abilities, not to mention Donald Trump. The White House is pushing back against pressure on him to leave the race. Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani has the latest.
The president will speak with Hill leaders and Democratic governors. He will travel to Wisconsin on Friday. He will conduct a sit-down interview with George Stephanopoulos from ABC News while on the campaign trail. He will travel to Philadelphia on Sunday. And next week, I know you guys are going to be really excited about this, he will host a press conference during NATO.
Texas Congressman Lloyd Doggett is the first Democrat publicly calling for the president to step aside as nominee. And former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi tells MSNBC asking about the president's halting performance is legitimate.
I think it's a legitimate question to say, is this an episode or is this a condition? And so when people ask that question, it's completely legitimate of both candidates.
At the White House,
He had a cold and a bad night. I would not see this as an episode. I would see this as what it was and what we believe it to be, which is it was a bad night.
spokeswoman Karine Jean-Pierre spent nearly an hour fielding questions about the president's performance and mental state.
I'm not going to discount what the American people see or feel.
And says he'll make his case straight to them.
You know this president. He likes to fight. He likes to fight for the American people. He believes on standing up for the American people. You see him do that over and over again.
He will meet this week with Democratic lawmakers and governors, do a network TV interview, visit 2 states, and hold a press conference.
We want to turn the page on this. And we want to turn the page for the American people as well, because we know that they need to see him out there. He's going to continue to be out there. He has been. And we understand how important that is.
Sagar Meghani, Washington.
The earliest Category 5 hurricane in recorded history, Beryl, crashed into the Caribbean, leaving behind a trail of destruction as it turns its sights on Jamaica and the Cayman Islands. As Jennifer King reports, the concern beyond Jamaica is for Belize, Cancun, and whether its northwest route could potentially bring the storm towards southern Texas.
We are most concerned about Jamaica, where we're expecting the core of a major hurricane to pass near or over the island during the day. So we have a hurricane warning in effect for Jamaica. We are expecting a storm surge of 5 to 8 feet above normal tide levels on the coast of Jamaica, especially concerned in the areas around Kingston, those harbors, and on the south side of the island.
Hurricane Beryl is headed toward Jamaica and the Cayman Islands with life-threatening winds and storm surge.
Maximum winds are up to 165 miles per hour. It's a Category 5 hurricane.
Eric Blake is a senior specialist with the National Hurricane Center.
We expect the storm to begin to lose some strength later today, but we still expect it to be a powerful hurricane when it affects Jamaica.
The storm made a direct hit on Cancun, ripping off rooftops and leaving streets covered with debris. It also left damage in Grenada and St. Vincent.
I'm not used to this kind of weather. This is actually the strongest storm that we've had come through St. Vincent in my lifetime. And I hope that I don't have another one. And to be fair, this wasn't even a direct hit. The eye of the storm was closer down to Carriacou and Grenada.
Logistics manager Marlon Gibson was interviewed by Sky News.
And all around me, there were houses in the village. Their roofs were flying past. You could see it passing. It was just a terrifying experience. their roofs off everywhere. I don't think there's anybody on the island or even in the Grenadines who can say that they haven't been affected in one way or the other by this storm.
Beryl's the earliest Category 5 storm ever to form in the Atlantic.
There's never been a Category 4 hurricane in the Atlantic during June.
Brian McNulty at the University of Miami is a tropical weather researcher.
The water there is hotter than it would normally be at the peak of the season.
I'm Jennifer King.
Sentencing for Donald Trump delayed. An update when America in the Morning continues after these messages. Welcome back. You're with America in the Morning. Summer temperatures are living up to their name. Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy with a check of the forecast.
In the west, the heat is going to continue to build today with temperatures well into the triple digits across the California valleys, into the deserts and southwest, with many places in the 100 and teens. This will lead to a significant risk for the health and safety of people and animals during the peak heating of the day. The Northwest will still remain on the comfortable side with highs in the 70s and 80s, but this heat will be building northward for the rest of the week into the weekend, with excessive heat watches already in place. Meanwhile, a cold front will be moving eastward through the Great Lakes and southward to the Ohio Valley and Central Plains. This will spark more gusty thunderstorms today from western New York into Ohio, southern Indiana, southern Illinois, Kentucky, and Missouri, especially during the afternoon hours. This front has already had a history of producing severe storms, and there remains a risk for damaging winds, hail, and a drenching downpour. And another storm will be moving out of the Rockies today with strong to severe thunderstorms forming as far north as southeast North Dakota into eastern Wyoming, South Dakota, Nebraska, eastern Colorado, Kansas, and the northernmost areas of New Mexico and Texas. These storms will carry all the risks of severe weather from damaging winds and hail to flash flooding and even a tornado. A few scattered storms will also develop this afternoon into the rest of New Mexico with more widespread activity well to the north in Montana. A nearly stationary front across southern Georgia and northern Florida will once again produce some heavier showers and thunderstorms, and these storms could also produce farther west along the Gulf Coast into Louisiana, into East Texas. The rest of the southeast into the mid-Atlantic and northeast will be largely dry today with highs in the 80s and 90s. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
Follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. Manhattan's district attorney says he will not oppose Donald Trump's hush money sentencing delay request scheduled for later next week after the Supreme Court's immunity ruling. Correspondent Julie Walker reports.
Prosecutors with the Manhattan DA's office say they would be open to delaying Donald Trump's July 11th sentencing in his criminal hush money case for up to 2 weeks, following a Supreme Court ruling that granted broad immunity protections to former presidents. This comes a day after Trump's lawyers asked the judge for a delay to weigh the high court's decision in relation to vacating the former president's guilty verdict. Either way, Pace Law professor Bennett Gershman says he thinks the guilty verdict will stand.
I don't think that the judge could conceivably believe that presidential immunity would apply to somebody who's a candidate for president and not president. And virtually all of the evidence in the hush money case happened before Trump became president.
If the judge grants a delay, it means Trump won't learn his sentence until after he's formally nominated for president at the Republican National Convention, which starts July 15th. Julie Walker, New York.
California is in the middle of a triple-digit heat wave, and that could dampen 4th of July plans in the Golden State. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports.
California not the only state with scorching temperatures this 4th of July holiday week. A surge of heat being felt across parts of the West, including Arizona, Nevada, Oregon, and Utah. In the Golden State, though, specific concerns surround the risk of fires. Fireworks displays now in jeopardy, despite heavy spring rain in parts of California. The sun essentially already drying out the grass.
And now it's warming up. They're drying out and becoming flammable.
Officials at CAL FIRE urging Californians to take precautions like not mowing or operating outdoor equipment in the extreme heat.
Metal blades striking rocks can create sparks and start fires, so always use caution. In wildland areas, spark arresters are required in all portable gasoline-powered equipment. Don't drive your vehicles into hot grass or brush.
From Southern California to the Sacramento area, the threat of wildfires being paid close attention to. An excessive heat watch in the Sacramento and San Joaquin valleys. Temperatures could reach well over 100 degrees in parts of the state this weekend. And organizers of fireworks shows tomorrow on the 4th, discussing the possibility of calling those off. I'm Clayton Neville.
We hope your 4th of July holiday tomorrow is a happy and safe one. When we return on America in the Morning, hurricane stirs cruise line stocks and the global most wealthy list. After these messages. America in the Morning back now. The Business Report is sponsored by Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments has a team of specialists in investing, financial planning, estate planning, and more. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Here's your pre-4th report from CNBC's Jessica Ettinger.
Wall Street opens this morning for a shortened trading day. Market close 1 p.m. Eastern after a winning day for the markets yesterday. Investors want to get home for the 4th tomorrow. The Nasdaq hit another record high. The FDA approved Eli Lilly's Alzheimer's drug, brand name Kisunla, expanding treatment options in the U.S. The drug faced a number of delays in its path to market. Cruise line shares and oil prices. Tough few days. Hurricane Beryl's been ripping through the Caribbean. Royal Caribbean Cruise Line shares ticked higher yesterday, though, after falling Monday. It was Carnival and Norwegian that were down 2 days in a row. And hurricanes can disrupt the oil business with its tankers and coastal refineries. U.S. crude now at its highest since the end of April.
Beryl is now the earliest hurricane to reach Category 5 status in history. Oil prices moving higher. It's the first in what could be the busiest hurricane season since 2005.
CNBC's Frank Holland. General Motors had its best sales quarter for vehicles in 4 years. Tesla delivered more EVs than expected in the last quarter.
Tesla delivering 443,000 vehicles delivered worldwide in the second quarter. And so this is much better than was expected. Earlier today, we got Tesla's China numbers, and that had a few people a little bit nervous. Remember, China is the world's largest EV market. In June, sales totaled 71,007 vehicles, down 24% year over year.
CNBC's Phil LeBeau. JCPenney closing stores in 4 states in the coming months. Retail Dive says they're in Mobile, Alabama, Wichita Falls, and Waterville, Maine. The JCPenney at the Westfield Annapolis Mall in Annapolis, Maryland closes next year. Krispy Kreme will hand you an original glazed donut tomorrow if you walk in wearing red, white, and blue.
Oh, big change on the global most wealthy list.
Yes, there's been a little switch not far from the top. Steve Ballmer, now the world's 6th richest person.
It's the first time the former Microsoft CEO has been worth more than the company's co-founder and his old boss, surpassing Bill Gates. More than 90% of Ballmer's $157 billion fortune is tied to Microsoft shares, while Gates has diversified his wealth.
CNBC's Bertha Coombs. On today's watch list, the financial markets close at 1 p.m. Eastern for a shortened trading day ahead of the market holiday, 4th of July tomorrow. We get the ADP report today on private sector hiring for June. Earnings are coming from Constellation Brands, the parent of Corona Beer. Tonight, Universal Pictures' Despicable Me 4 opens in theaters. Universal is a sister company to CNBC.
Thank you, Jessica. Jessica Ettinger. New twist in the Jeffrey Epstein saga when America in the Morning continues after these messages. America in the Morning rolls on. What did prosecutors know, and when did they know it? Those the questions being raised after grand jury transcripts have been released in the Jeffrey Epstein sexual assault case. Correspondent Ben Thomas has a closer look.
Florida prosecutors knew Jeffrey Epstein sexually assaulted teenage girls before they cut a plea deal with him, long criticized as too lenient. That from transcripts detailing 2006 grand jury testimony. One girl testified she was paid $300 to give Epstein a sexual massage and $200 every time she recruited a friend. The investigation was the first of many by law enforcement into Epstein's rape and sex trafficking of teenagers and how his ties to the rich and powerful seemed to allow him to avoid prison or a serious jail term for more than a decade. Under that deal, he was sentenced to 1.5 years in the Palm Beach County jail system, during which he was allowed to go to his office almost daily as part of a work release program. I'm Ben Thomas.
Among the two main presidential candidates in their run for the White House, there is one man who has raked in the most money in the second quarter. Correspondent Ed Donahue reports.
The presidential campaigns are releasing fundraising numbers for the second quarter. The Trump campaign says it raised $331 million between April and June. $111 million of that raised in June. It outraised the Biden campaign, which raised $264 million for the quarter. The numbers potentially undercut the president's attempt to calm fears within his own party after last week's debate performance, which set off calls for him to step down. The Trump campaign says the Biden campaign spent more on advertising but did not seem to move the needle. Biden's campaign manager calls his totals a testament to the committed and growing base of supporters standing firmly behind the president. Ed Donahue, Washington.
America in the Morning for Wednesday, July 3rd, 2024 is produced by Jeff McKay. Senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour.
More Democrats are calling for President Biden to step aside in his race to keep the White House from President Trump. I'm John Stolnis in Washington.
As some Republicans are concerned over how much money is being sent to Ukraine, another aid package is headed there. I'm Clayton Neville.
America's mayor disbarred.
The social media fur was flying between a presidential hopeful and a former House representative. I'm Katie Clark with details.
The Virginia State Board of Elections has certified the apparent defeat of Republican Congressman Bob Good. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
A law school is being sued. We'll tell you why. And what motorists will be paying at the pump for the July 4th holiday. Back after these messages. Welcome back to America in the Morning. Rain and thunderstorms again in store today for portions of the nation's midsection. Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
A cold front moving eastward through the Great Lakes and southward into the Ohio Valley and Central Plains will spark more gusty thunderstorms today from western New York into Ohio, southern Indiana, southern Illinois, Kentucky, and Missouri, especially during the afternoon hours. This front has already had a history of producing severe thunderstorms, and there remains a risk for damaging winds, hail, and a drenching downpour. And yet another system will be shifting out of the Rockies today with strong to severe thunderstorms forming as far north as southeast North Dakota into eastern Wyoming, South Dakota, Nebraska, eastern Colorado, Kansas, and then even the northernmost parts of New Mexico and Texas. These storms will carry all the risks of severe weather from damaging winds and hail to flash flooding and even a tornado. We'll have a few scattered thunderstorms also developing through the rest of New Mexico with more widespread activity well to the north in Montana. A nearly stationary front across southern Georgia into northern Florida will once again produce some heavier showers and thunderstorms. These storms can also develop westward along the Gulf Coast into Louisiana and East Texas. The rest of the southeast into the middle Atlantic and northeast will be largely dry today. And then looking out west, the heat will continue to build today with temperatures well into the triple digits across the California Valley into the deserts and southwest. There will be significant risk to people during the peak of the day. The northwest will remain a little more on the comfortable side. That's the weather across America. It is going to be another hot day in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, with sunshine and a high of 100. Keeping the heat at bay for now is Seattle, Washington, where there will be partly sunny skies and a high of 76. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
Follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. As the White House tries to downplay the president's debate performance last Thursday night, more Democrats are voicing concerns and calling for President Biden to step aside. John Stolnis has the story from Washington.
Democratic Congressman Lloyd Doggett became the first sitting member of Congress to call on Biden to remove himself as the nominee, saying in a statement Biden should, quote, make the painful and difficult decision to withdraw. Former House Speaker and current Democratic Representative Nancy Pelosi on MSNBC is still wondering exactly what happened last week.
Now, again, I think it's a legitimate question to say, is this an episode or is this a condition? And so when people ask that question, it's completely legitimate of both candidates.
One of Biden's closest confidants, Congressman Jim Clyburn, was asked by MSNBC if he would support Vice President Kamala Harris as the nominee should Biden drop out.
I will support her if he were to step aside. But I want to support her going forward sometime in the future. I want this ticket to continue to be Biden-Harris. And then we'll see what happens after the next election.
Former Congressman Tim Ryan, who was a challenger in the 2020 Democratic primary, wrote in an op-ed in Newsweek that Biden should step aside for Harris. At an event with donors in Northern Virginia yesterday, the president apologized for his debate performance and blamed it partially on 2 European trips in the weeks before the debate, and that it, quote, wasn't very smart to travel around the world a couple of times before the debate. He even admitted he, quote, almost fell asleep on stage. Critics point out the president returned from the second of those trips on June 15th, 12 days before the June 27th debate. The president will meet with Democratic governors at the White House later today, a day after many of those governors held a private call expressing their concerns. He'll also speak with Hill leaders today and will travel to Wisconsin on Friday and sit down with ABC's George Stephanopoulos for an extensive interview. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre urging concerned Democrats not to overreact.
You understand, we're not taking away from what you all saw or what the American people saw. We understand it was a bad night. It is not uncommon for incumbents to have a bad night on their first debate.
John Stolnis, Washington.
The United States is pledging more money for Ukraine, and the Pentagon is pointing to a potential NATO membership for that country as its war with Russia rages. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports.
U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin met with the Ukrainian defense minister in Washington, where he said the United States will take steps to build a bridge to NATO membership for Ukraine.
Alongside some 50 allies and partners, we'll continue to provide the critical capabilities that Ukraine needs to push back Russian aggression today and to deter Russian aggression tomorrow.
Congress passed a $61 billion aid package for Ukraine earlier this year. More money on the way.
The United States will soon announce more than $2.3 billion in new security assistance for Ukraine.
Secretary Austin, after months of encouragement by Ukrainian forces for more air defense systems.
This package, under presidential drawdown authority, will provide more air defense interceptors, anti-tank weapons, and other critical munitions from U.S. inventories.
Former president and Republican frontrunner in the presidential election, Donald Trump, has been critical of the billions sent to Ukraine, and he said that he would have the issue resolved before he took office if elected. Trump has reportedly spoke to advisors about a potential plan to only give Ukraine more money if it enters peace talks with Russia. Other Republicans, adamant supporters of the continued help for the Ukrainians.
Over half the money that is supposedly for Ukraine is being spent here in this country.
Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell.
In 38 different states, including ours, to rebuild our industrial complex for the challenges that lie ahead.
On the ground in Ukraine this week, President Volodymyr Zelensky's Secret Service says that it stopped a coup it believes would have played into Russia's hands. This as Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban arrives in Kyiv for talks with Zelensky. I'm Clayton Neville.
New rules for keeping workers safe from extreme heat. A proposal from President Biden as parts of the nation broil under high temperatures. More on the topic from Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani.
President Biden is proposing a new rule to protect millions of workers from extreme heat as tens of millions of Americans face heat advisories.
Across the country, workers suffer heat stroke or even die just doing their jobs. This new rule will substantially reduce heat injuries, illnesses, and deaths for over 36 million workers to whom it will apply, from farm workers to construction workers, postal workers, manufacturing workers, and so much more.
The president says extreme heat is the nation's top weather-related killer, and his administration's moving to help shield 36 million people on the job, from construction workers to mail carriers.
This includes things like developing response plans to heat illness, training employees and supervisors, implementing rest breaks.
On a visit to Washington, D.C.'s Emergency Operations Center, the president laid out other steps his administration's taking to battle extreme weather and blasted Donald Trump and GOP lawmakers who deny climate change exists.
I quite frankly think it's not only outrageous, it's really stupid. Everyone who willfully denies the impacts of climate change is condemning the American people to a dangerous future, and either is really, really dumb or has some other motive of that. How can you deny there's climate change, for God's sake?
Sagar Meghani at the White House.
When America in the Morning returns, among the stories we're covering, New York's Giuliani disbarred and Cheney in Trump's crosshairs. Back after these messages. I'm John Trout. Welcome back. You're with America in the Morning. He was the mayor of New York who guided America's largest city through the perils of 9/11. Now he finds himself barred from practicing law in the Empire State. Correspondent Julie Walker reports.
Donald Trump's former legal advisor, Rudy Giuliani, was disbarred in New York after a court found he repeatedly made false statements about the former president's 2020 election loss.
Some of the ballots you will see look suspicious. From very far away, they look like same pen, possibly same handwriting. We can't say that because we never got to see it.
An appeals court ruling came Tuesday after Trump's main mouthpiece for false claims of election fraud had already been suspended. The court said in its decision, Giuliani essentially conceded most of the facts supporting the alleged acts of misconduct. His attorney, Arthur Aidala, says they put up a valiant effort to prevent disbarment, but saw the writing on the wall. His spokesperson, Ted Goodman, calls it a politically and ideologically corrupted decision and says they will appeal. Giuliani rose from lawyer to federal prosecutor to someone once called America's mayor. Julie Walker, New York.
Donald Trump amplifies posts on social media calling for a televised military tribunal for former Congresswoman Liz Cheney and the jailing of top elected officials, including President Biden. Katie Clark is following that story.
A recent social media post by Donald Trump ruffled the feathers of a few people, including Trump's longtime rival, Liz Cheney. Trump went to Truth Social, posting a meme picturing Cheney with the words, "Liz Cheney is guilty of treason. Retruth if you want televised military tribunals." The former president went on to suggest putting President Biden, Vice President Harris, Mitch McConnell, Chuck Schumer, and Mike Pence in jail, and not Steve Bannon. Liz Cheney responded on X, saying that Donald Trump is not a stable adult. Here is Liz Cheney speaking on MSNBC.
It's so fundamentally important that we ensure Democrats, independents, Republicans, that we work together, we vote together, we make clear that Donald Trump is not an acceptable alternative. He is not the lesser of two evils. He is a completely unfit man for office. He's already shown us what he would do, and he can never be near the Oval Office again.
President Biden spoke out against Trump's social media posts, saying that he is doubling down on threats to our democracy. I'm Katie Clark.
The Commonwealth of Virginia has certified John McGuire as the primary winner over conservative Congressman Bob Good as the leader of the Freedom Caucus. Correspondent Lisa Dwyer reports Good is demanding a recount.
The Virginia State Board of Elections has certified the apparent defeat of Republican Congressman Bob Good, one of America's most conservative congressmen, to a challenger endorsed by former President Donald Trump in Virginia's June 18th primaries. Good says he will seek a recount now that the state has declared his opponent, State Senator John McGuire, the winner of the primary in Virginia's 5th congressional district. State law allows Good to request a recount because his margin of defeat is less than a percentage point, but he will be required to pay for it. Last week, the Associated Press declared the race too close to call, citing the likelihood of a recount. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
A lawsuit was filed against Chicago's Northwestern University claiming that its law school hires less qualified people of color and women over white men for faculty positions in violation of federal anti-discrimination laws. The complaint was brought by a group called Faculty, Alumni, and Students Opposed to Racial Preferences and alleges that 3 unnamed members of that group who claim they are already and willing to apply for faculty posts at Northwestern's law school cannot compete because they are white men. A spokesperson for Northwestern University says the school will vigorously defend against this case. Strike planned for workers at Samsung's memory chip division, but the impact might not be noticeable as most of the factory is automated. Here's tech correspondent Chuck Palm.
Union workers for Samsung Electronics in Seoul, South Korea, have called for a strike from July 8th through the 10th, officials said on Tuesday. The union has yet to determine how many workers will join the strike, but their demands are for a more transparent system, bonuses, and time off, and wants the company to treat them as equal partners. Samsung is the world's largest memory chip maker and is fairly automated. Any impact will ultimately depend on how many people who operate the chip plants participate in the strike and for how long. Kim Yang-pang from the Korea Institute for Industrial Economics and Trade said chip production cannot proceed with replacement workers if the people who operate the automated machines walk out for a long time. Union membership increased rapidly after Samsung in 2020 pledged to stop discouraging growth of organized labor. Samsung's stock price was little changed on the news at the close of business on Tuesday. Tell us what you think at allthetoptech.tech. I'm Chuck Palm.
America in the Morning continues. Midweek sports is in. Here's our Robert Workman.
Baseball last night, the Orioles blanked the Mariners 2-0. Grayson Rodriguez and the Shades with a 2-hit gem for his 10th win. Rangers shut out the Padres 7-0, a 2-hitter for Nathan Eovaldi and Jonathan Hernandez, while Nathaniel Lowe hit a pair of 2-run homers. Trey Turner homered twice to lead the Phillies past the Cubs. Twins topped the Tigers. You can make it 20 games in a row with at least one homer for Minnesota. Cardinals sank the Pirates. Nolan Gorman rang up his granny.
I put the barrel on the ball, so whatever happened there in that situation, bases loaded, I got a job done, and just glad it went over the fence.
Dodgers dinged the Diamondbacks. Teoscar Hernandez's 3rd RBI of the night came in the bottom of the 9th. Bo Naylor's walk-off sac fly gave the Guardians the win over the White Sox. Brewers got 2 in the top of the 9th to edge the Rockies. Rhys Hoskins took one for the team to drive in the go-ahead run.
I get to face a guy coming in with the bases loaded, first hitter, and I like that for the hitter every time because the pressure's mostly on the pitcher there.
Mets scored 5 in the 10th to take down the Nationals. Red shaded the Yankees, Giants over the Braves. Blue Jays repelled the Astros, A's held off the Angels, Red Sox roughed up the Marlins, and the Rays dropped the Royals. At Wimbledon, first-round wins for top seed Iga Swiatek, American 5 seed Jessica Pegula, and 24-time major champion Novak Djokovic. 7 of those titles have come at the All England Club. Out, defending champion Marketa Vondrousova and Andrei Rublev, both 6 seeds falling on the same day. At Euro 2024, the quarterfinal round is all set. Friday, it'll be Spain versus host Germany, then Portugal facing tournament favorite France. Saturday, England takes on Switzerland, followed by the Netherlands against upstart Turkey. That's Wednesday Sports.
Thank you, sir. When we return on America in the Morning, U.S. government developing vaccine with pharmaceutical company, and a pre-holiday check of gas prices after these messages. Welcome back. You're with America in the Morning. The U.S. government is paying pharmaceutical company Moderna to develop a pandemic flu vaccine. With that story, correspondent Mike Hempen.
Moderna is getting $176 million from the Department of Health and Human Services to accelerate development of a pandemic influenza vaccine that would be used to treat bird flu in people. Officials say the project can be quickly redirected to target another form of influenza if a different threat than the H5N1 form of bird flu emerges. That virus was detected earlier this year in dairy cows, and 3 people have been infected. But officials say the threat to the general population remains low. Mike Hempen, Washington.
The Masked Singer host, Nick Cannon, has just taken out a new insurance policy that clearly hits below the belt. Kevin Carr explains.
People buy insurance policies for everything from cars to homes, but comedian Nick Cannon has decided some of his personal assets are valuable enough for more protection.
You hear about like all these different celebrities like insuring their legs. So I was like, hey, well, I got to insure my most valuable body part.
There's no question that everything works with Cannon, possibly a little too well. The Masked Singer host has 12 children with 6 different women, including ex-wife Mariah Carey. At the second birthday party for his son Legendary, he spoke to E.T. about the new policy.
It's just making sure nothing goes wrong. Because if something goes wrong, then my kids they'll divide that up and take it and run with it.
The insurance is actually a coordinated marketing effort with organic soap company The Squatch, which manufactures personal grooming products for men. As part of this campaign, the company dropped an advertisement on Instagram last month.
Nick Cannon's single-handedly keeping the human population afloat. He's fathered 12 children that he knows of, and shows no signs of stopping.
While the 43-year-old Cannon is holding on to the $10 million policy, he is not planning on using the insured to expand his family anytime soon. At least that's what his current girlfriend, Brie Tiesi, says.
Oh, I'm one and done. 1,000% I'm one and done.
Celebrities insuring body parts is nothing new. Dolly Parton famously once insured her bosom, Heidi Klum insured her legs, and Bruce Springsteen has insured his vocal cords. I'm Kevin Carr.
Looking to celebrate tomorrow, the 4th of July, the average price of gas on Independence Day is expected to be $3.49 per gallon nationwide, the lowest price it's been on the busy travel holiday in 3 years. 5 states, Hawaii, California, Washington, Oregon, and Nevada, are where the prices at the pump are the highest in the nation, all above $4 a gallon. However, in California, gas prices are about $1.60 below their all-time highs from 2 years ago. Mississippi has the lowest gas prices in the nation, averaging $2.95. Remember, today is one of the busiest travel days of the year on our nation's highways, where the worst delays will be between 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. America in the Morning for Wednesday, July 3rd, 2024, is produced by Jeff McKay. Senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.